welcome everybody to the funeral of Terry Goodwin. As you may have surmised, this will not be a usual funeral, as Terry was not a usual person. I am Denise Clapsaddle, I'm the pastor here, and apparently someone lost their keys. It's Subaru keys, so...
Who lost their keys? Stand up.
Yeah, not looking to embarrass anybody, but...
Did you drop
They're yours. Oh. Well, we'll hold them for you. When we sat down to put together this service, it was me and Betsy, Terry's widow, and Rick Fowler, the once and future spirit that haunts this place. And Helen and Carol Ferlin, and Terry had mentioned 4 poets that were that he wanted poems included in some way. He had written it down, and Betsy found it. I happened to feel some sort of spirit moved her to look in the right place at the right time, and since Terry was not a usual kind of church-going person, I have also chosen a poem by Thich Nhat Hanh for my opening prayer. It's called, "Please Call Me by My True Names." Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today I'm still arriving. Look deeply, every second I'm arriving to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I am the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I'm a frog swimming happily in the clear water of a pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on that frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being taken by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo, with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears, so vast it fills the 4 oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and my pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up and the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. Terry wanted a poem read by William Butler Yeats, and so we have selected this one. It's called The Everlasting Voices. O sweet everlasting voices, be still. Go to the guards of the heavenly fold and bid them wander, obeying your will. Flame under flame, till time be no more. Have you not heard that our hearts are old? That you call in birds, in wind on the hill, in shaken boughs, in tide on the shore? O sweet everlasting voices, be still.
Funeral Blues by W.H. Auden. Stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone, silence the pianos, and with muffled drum, bring out the coffin, let the mourners come. Let aeroplanes circle, moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, he is dead. Put crepe bows round the white necks of the public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. He was my north, my south, my east and west, my working week and my Sunday rest, my noon, my midnight, my talk, my song. I thought that love would last forever. I was wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out every one. Pack up the moon and dismantle the sun. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood, for nothing now can ever come to any good.
A journal reading. When Lorraine and I visited Terry and Betsy today, I really didn't know what to expect. I prepared myself for a discussion that might include his illness and how his feelings about faith might or might not be touched by it. But instead, we talked a lot about the view out the living room window. This view looked out upon trees and grass and the land beyond the bordered white memorial property. Terry pointed out a particular tree that leaned a lot and was empty of leaves, but was also kind of beautiful in its emptiness. The view had been peaceful, and when I got home, I thought, well, Terry did not talk about faith issues. I guess he didn't want to do that, and that's okay. But as I think on this visit, I know that a perception of faith was speaking loud and clear, although not in words one would expect. You see, there may have been trees and grass and even a particular tree, but there was so much more. The grass may have been a dull winter green, but it contained energy within that would come forth in vibrant color in the spring. The trees might have been empty of their leaves, but they too would burst forth in vibrant color when the season was right. And that tree, the one that was leaning, it would rest all winter long, and in due season would show forth the life contained within it. I didn't feel it at the moment I saw these things, but I feel it as I write these words. I feel connected to all that I saw, and I feel that at that moment, Terry felt connected to it as well. New life happens, and isn't that what faith is all about? Faith isn't always expressed in the flowery words we expect to hear, but it shines just the same.
Terry was a brilliant man. He knew everything about any topic. And that's why it just wasn't fair to play Trivial Pursuit with him. He had all the answers. And eventually he abstained, but I'm sure he was laughing quietly at all of us struggling to come up with those answers that he knew. And this smart man, as a kid, misunderstood the words to the hymn, "Lead on, O King Eternal." He thought those words were, "Lead on, O Kinky Turtle." He was always posting quips from the on Facebook from the Coffee Party Club and Sarcastic Mama. This spoke volumes about his humor and personality, and I'd like to share a few of those with you. If you love someone, let them go. If they come back with coffee, it was meant to be. And I wondered if that's what Betsy did. Not to get technical, but according to chemistry, coffee is a solution. I love the smell of socially acceptable chemical dependence in the morning. Coffee pairs nicely with silence. Coffee, because anger management is too expensive. Coffee is not just a beverage, it's liquid sanity. I drink coffee for your protection. My body is just like a filter. Coffee goes in and sarcasm comes out. To-do list. Number 1, drink coffee. Number 2, avoid slapping stupid people. Number 3, repeat 1 and 2. You could call them swear words. I call them sentence enhancers. That's what I do. I read books and I know things. Reading can seriously damage your ignorance. On a more serious note, he posted a couple of profound quips that I think describe how he thought and how he lived his life. People are created to be loved. Things are created to be used. The reason why the world is in chaos is because things are loved and people are being used. I am a badass believer in human rights. Well, excuse me, I'm sorry. I am not a liberal snowflake. My feelings aren't fragile. My heart isn't bleeding. I am a badass believer in human rights. My toughness is in tenderness. My strength is in service of others. There is nothing more fierce than formidable, unconditional love. There is not a thing more courageous than compassion. But if my belief in equity, empathy, goodness, and love makes me a snowflake, then you should know winter is coming. Lastly, interjecting another coffee quip. Not all who wander are lost. Most of them are just looking for coffee. And the smell of coffee is like freshly grown heaven. So I wonder, Terry, did you smell it? And did you find that freshly grown heaven when you arrived?
sorry for making my thing.
Got coffee.
No. No. It's not for you. Yeah. Terry's my brother. Big brother. I'd like to tell you the story of two brothers who were inseparable. I'd like to, but I can't. Terry was born about 3.5 years after me, and we were definitely cut from the same cloth. We butted heads all the time. More often than not, I won because I was bigger. But I never went unpunished. Terry saw to that. Ma, Mike's being mean to me. Stop it, or you're gonna get hit. I was always trying to get rid of him because he was a little kid and I was the big guy. I didn't want him tagging along. He, of course, always wanted to be part of whatever I was doing. Most of the time, I was sure it was just above me. When Terry was around 6, he had to give up his place as the youngest in the family to the twins, Kevin and Ken. It went fine for a while, but then Brother Ralph got into a terrible car accident. I was drafted to be babysitter for Terry and the twins, while Mom and Dad visited Ralph in the hospital. Terry had a way about it. It took him no more than 5 minutes to get one or both of the twins crying and screaming. And of course, in my most politic way, I chased him out of the house, threatening to beat him. He'd wait. As soon as Mom and Dad drove back in, he'd be right there telling them exactly what I did to him. I could never convince them that he had upset the twins and that I was just trying to protect them. Never works that way. A few more years went by fairly peacefully, and then I headed into the Air Force. I had to enlist to avoid the draft and end up going to Vietnam. Ended up in Vietnam half the time. Terry and I correspond. He wanted to be a writer. I teased him by telling him he should listen to the Beatles song, Paperback Writer. He came right back at me 2 weeks later in another letter and said that I should listen to Nowhere Man. Making all of his nowhere plans. It took me a little while, but I ultimately understood he was rebuking me for leaving home. Some things just can't be helped. But I began to understand that the little brat was a thinking, feeling individual. He and Betsy found each other. Cosgrove and I found each other. These were days of establishing ourselves and making our homes. I'm sure you've seen the photo if you look closely at a pair of hippie couples. Big hair and beards. The beards were just carrying them. He had that silly grin on his face. It was now something I enjoyed seeing, not something I cringed at. After a few years, Terry ended up with a laboratory job for the town of Southington in their sewage treatment area. At that time, Cosgrove and I were living in Southington. Terry relished telling anyone who had listened how no matter how hard he tried, he always seemed to have to deal with my crap all the time. We'll jump way ahead to 2017. It actually feels like it was longer ago than that. You'll find us walking around lush gardens with hundreds of butterflies, all around. We were enjoying a day at the Butterfly Music Gardens in the University of Florida. Simply enjoying each other's company. We had finally grown up and fully accepted each other. Terry is my brother. I was lucky enough to be able to visit with Terry and Betsy in mid-January for a few days. Lucky enough to talk with Terry about things and also to bring him a cup of coffee each morning. One of the things I said to him, you know you jumped the line, bro. He looked at me, that smirk on his face, and said, and what are you going to do about it? All I can say is, Terry, I hope your habit has a great coffee house and that they never run out of the brew you love so much.
Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at the close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright. Their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learn, too late, they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death who see with blinding sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my Father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying light.
Jillian's here with me in case I'm not able to get through this. I've been flip about it until this morning. So I apologize. Betsy and Terry were very good friends with Jeff and Steph Belcher, who were ministers here years ago, and they remained great friends. This past year, Steph has been ill in Maine and Terry in Connecticut. And both of them sad that they couldn't be there for each other. It was heartbreaking for them. So Steffi wrote this letter. I love Terry and always will. There are so many reasons. When my sons, Kristen, Chris and Jason were in wheelchairs. He was always caring and helpful, but most of all, he was entertaining. He was funny and made them laugh. I could tell you many stories of things he said and did. He was goofy, he was silly, and he was caring and wonderful. He and I talked on the phone often while Jeff and I were in Plymouth. He was bored at work, and I was bored at home. I can't remember all that we talked about, but found conversations with him funny sometimes, and always interesting and thoughtful. He became a friend I trusted, and could, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading because I can't see. He became a friend I trusted and could count on, and my favorite person to talk with and debate all kinds of things. I will miss that. There was nobody like him. He loved music and he loved music that had meaning and great movies that he shared with Jeff and I. He cared deeply about those in his life. When Chris died, there are many other times when he moved to help us and others spontaneously. I still fill up with tears thinking about it. He cared and sent his love to us in nonverbal ways often. He was a precious friend to Jeff and I and was always there for us. We all are proud liberals and spent time every visit to talk about how the country was going to hell. Unfortunately, now it has really happened in ways we could not have imagined. How great it was to talk freely about politics, etc., without censoring what we shared. Terry was always the most knowledgeable and outspoken. Betsy and Terry came out to the Midwest when we were moving home to New England. What a journey that was. Get Betsy to tell you about the tick attacks. Terry could also be grouchy, argumentative, and stubborn, as we all who loved him know well. That was just part of being Terry, and he was easy to forgive. His death breaks my heart. I will miss him for the rest of my life. As you may know, my sweetheart Jeff died last February. By some miracle, Terry and Betsy were there for the last night. He died at 2:30 a.m. the next morning, unexpectedly. They were there for me. Since then, they have called almost every week. Just to hear their voices felt healing. At the same time, we all knew Terry was very sick, and I was so afraid for him and sad. I love you, Terry. Thanks for being such a wise, loving, and fun presence in my life. I love you, Betsy, and will always be here for you. Grief is a long road. I wished I lived closer so I can walk some of it with you. It is a road I know pretty well, but everyone's journey is unique. Gather all the love that friends and family can give you and hold on to it. In times alone, hold that love close to you, but nothing can fill the place that Terry had in your heart and your life. I'm so sad I could not be there today to weep for Terry and hear the service and special music. I send hugs and love to all of you. Steffi Belcher. Thanks.
All these things are hard acts to follow. as much as we knew Terry, we know more about him today. I'm Rick Fowler. I was here at one time. I'm in the Rogues Gallery up there. And when I first met Terry, I think it wasn't in church, I think it was outside of church. And he apologized to me for not darkening the doors. And he said, "Don't take it personally." I said, "I won't." And he said, and that was it. There was silent communication. But it was always good to see him. And he would show up sometimes within here, but he always looked very uncomfortable. And I did my best to comfort him. But Terry and I witnessed a kindred spiritness together, as we've heard from Steffi's memories of him and from his brother. Yeah, Terry was a radical. And he wasn't just a liberal, he was a radical. And as you can tell, I celebrate that. In fact, I wanted to note something in the back of the bulletin. It says that you and I are officiants. Officiants. If I could button my jacket, I would. I prefer to use the word celebrate, because we're all here celebrating. And none of us here is officious. So Terry apologized to me for not coming to church, and he didn't have to, but it was his introduction, because he wanted me to know him in a different light. And over the years, we got to know each other and approved of each other's Marxism, you know? Because Karl Marx was really an economist, social economist. He wasn't a communist. And I think Terry was one who was well versed in social economy and many other items. I always thought of Terry as quiet, and I think he was, except by your testimony, he chose one not to be. I see this little relative walking down the aisle, and I think it's so appropriate. As I look out here, I see many, many familiar faces, and some new ones. When I first came here, Milton Cuellar, who was one of the deacons, told me, he said, don't say nothing about nobody, because everyone's related. And I always took that to heart. And in these generations, I see not only family dovetailing, but the greater family of all the people who knew and loved Terry. And so I look out here and see my beloved people too. Terry once told me it was sometime in the early 70s, during that time of social upheaval, and you mentioned it, the Vietnam War, and he was opposed to it. I was too. He mentioned how troubled this church, like many churches, were on which side of the argument to come down on. This church has a history for having crotchety old men who are cantankerous. And some of us have reached that thing too, and I think I could be crotchety old man and cantankerous too, but coming from a different angle. But I remember my own church in Waterbury, Bunker Hill Church, was fractured by social issues. Terry was strong in his beliefs, as Helen said. He was strong in his faith, and he wasn't afraid to share that and tell that to people, even if they would shun him. So he told me this story, that at the peak of the troubles, both social and local, one night he went and he came into the church, and he chained the doors shut on the front. See, we could talk about that now. He chained the doors shut, and in the morning, when people came to open the church, they couldn't open it. Of course, they blamed Jeff Belcher. And Terry said, but it wasn't Jeff, it was me. And as I sat there listening to him, I saw stars, I laughed so hard. But this is an anecdote that is true about some of the actions that this radical thinker took, because he wanted people to understand what was at stake. And so he locked the church because he felt that the church wasn't acting as they should. No one ever knew who chained the door shut. Probably no one here remembers that. But now we know what kind of person Terry was. And I'm up here to remember that. Shortly after Terry's diagnosis, I was actually learning about it from Bill Rinko. I went up to his shop and he told me about Terry. I was crestfallen. And he called me and said he'd like to talk with me. So I went up there and visited him. It was a quiet day. And he said, I know what the end of this disease will be, and I'm making plans. I would like you to do my service. And we've opened that up, which is good. He says, because at least if you do the service, you will say that I wasn't a complete asshole. And that's a quote. And I looked at him, I said, oh, Terry, I'm afraid I can't do that, so it costs you extra. Well, that comment to me was humorous, but I was also struck by the deep sadness in it. And I thought to myself, who in this world would think that he was an asshole? I wouldn't, I didn't, but you know, there are some people out there who are crotchety and cantankerous enough. To me, he was always gentle and kind and deep, and a born philosopher. And I said I'd be honored to. I need to tell you that in the time of Terry's illness, I really could not minister to him doing pastoral care. And I told him, it's just too close, Terry. I can't do that. And I felt guilty about it. We'd communicate by phone periodically. And of course, there was always Facebook with the coffee memes. And I looked forward to that because they would pop up at the craziest times. Late at night, first thing in the morning, and all of a sudden there's a coffee meme. But there were also comments on society. And suddenly I missed that. I missed the reverence and the irreverence for things we hold sacred. Coffee, relationships, social and political commentary. It is indeed very, very close. Terry and I were 6 months apart in age, and we grew up in the same era. And we shared probably just every value together. So I knew he was going to get the pastoral care from somebody, and he did. I'm here today to reflect on a little bit of what I saw of Terry and what I knew of him. I'm not sure I can add anything to the testimony today, except telling the story of the chains and the church doors. You know? It's very symbolic. I too was fascinated by the breadth of knowledge of Terry. You know, he knew a lot about everything, and he knew most of it. I just wish other people could have benefited by that. I look out here today and see all of you cloud of witnesses who came here to remember him, to celebrate his life, to bear witness, and to also shed some tears. As I've said before, tears are the true holy water. And if you keep them in, it'll give you a wicked headache. I don't like headaches. They make me pretty ill. But this is a great man. Terry wouldn't like to hear that, because you would say, shucks, I'm not a great man. I don't know how many people are here, 150 at least, who think he was a great man. And the ongoing story, the ongoing legacy of that is how much we've been touched by his life. Little ways. Uncle Terry, you know, Brother Terry, husband Terry. And when we see a meme about coffee the next time, and they're going to pop up, we're going to remember him and his sacred brew. Most of the time when I caught the coffee memes, I'd either just had mine or I was just having it. Strong and black and thick, you know? And I'd chuckle. This building and this community here today and out in the world is about relationship. And it should always be about that. And it should never come to the point where we have to chain the front doors or split down the middle. It should always be about coming to an understanding and a tolerance and an embrace of oppositional opinions, even if we don't agree with them. Terry was a gentleman, and he was a gentleman. And as someone here talked about his grin, was it Steffi or you? The Terry grin. Most of the time, he had one face, didn't show any emotion. But you had to know him and you had to look for it. And know that he was bowled over in laughter internally. When we were planning this service, Betsy very strongly said, well, we want specific music. And we want to have monkey wash, donkey, whatever it is. Warren Zevon, it's a great. And we want to have this guy here play some music. And I said, why don't you have him hook it up to his amps and we can rock the church and shake the dust off the timbers. Because that's what Terry would want. And so we're here today to do it for him and to do it his way. One thing I loved about Terry was his irreverence. It's been said about me, right? The irreverent Rev. And yet we joke about that. But Terry was a very spiritual person who held a lot of things sacred. And we can learn by example that sometimes we have the exterior which is not doesn't divulge anything, but inside things are churning. I will miss him. I will miss the regular check-ins that he gave me electronically. And I know he liked what I sent him too. I'd like to read to you a memorial prayer. Source of life, Spirit of compassion, we give thanks from the fullness of our hearts for the life that we remember in this gathering. Let the meaning of his life live on in us. And may the light that he has given us shine on in our own lives and hearts and memories. Help us to find the courage and the faith we need each day to carry on. Open a way of hope before us. Mend our hearts and teach us to be comforters of one another. How near you were to us, gently embracing our lives for such a short time, weaving a living thread that suddenly paused, then leaped eternity. In the stilled caress of your treasured memory, we will speak to angels.
Now we'd like to invite folks who have something to say. You can just kind of raise your hand. We have a couple of microphones back there. We'll end. We have over here. I think you're going to have to go around. Well, no, you can go around that way. That'll work. Yeah. It's Carol Bora if you can't see. So.
Betsy and Terry lived in the farmhouse with my mom at one period, and that was next door to us. And I had a deal with my mother that when I was well into labor, that she would drive me to the hospital. Well, she came and got me, but she had a flat tire on her car. So she drove the car back to the house, and just then Terry pulled into the driveway, and Mother told him the dilemma, and this brings out how Terry would do anything for anybody. He said, hop in the car and I'll drive you. So Mom got in the front and me in the back. And on the way, Terry kept turning around and looking at me. And I said, Terry, please, just drive the car. I'll be fine. It takes time. So finally he listened and we got there. And I delivered twins a few hours later. And later on, I came to find out the reason Terry kept looking at me was he was petrified his car would not go as it was out of gas.
I think you're going to have to speak loudly.
Yeah, over here. Yeah, now, is the mic working properly? Can you see the light on?
Light's on.
All right, well.
It says low battery.
Oh, okay, let me get the other one.
Don't get too close.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
That's hot.
Get the other one away. It might be causing feedback.
It's off.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
I don't know if I can. I am very fortunate to have a relationship that I don't think anybody else had with Terry. And that's that when I married his brother in 1965, he became my brother-in-law. And again, when he married my sister, he was there in the darkest times that I had, and he was just there all the time. I'm thankful for that. Sorry about the tears.
There we go. Sorry, this is coming up. I would.
Yeah, this is very nice. If anybody wants to come up here, you can do that as well. So, sorry about the message.
Yep.
I would just, I remember him very fondly because over the years, he would always check in. He was always concerned about how I was doing, how my children were doing. He was just very thoughtful. It felt like he always had time to hear about how I was doing, how my life was. So it was always nice, even though we all kind of moved away from the central area in Connecticut. We moved up to Vermont. A lot of brothers moved on to Florida, but he made time to visit a couple times, came up to Vermont and stayed with us for a while. But he was just a really good guy, very caring, very compassionate, and I'm very proud to have called him my uncle, so I remember him very fondly. I don't want it.
I just wanted to say a couple things because I didn't manage to get as close as everyone else here did. But every time I saw him, which was at any family gathering or anything like that, it was something that meant a lot. I could talk to him about anything. It could be something about a game, or it could be something, a political conversation, because we got in those a lot. And he, as everyone said, he was a great mind and someone that I look to as an inspiration a lot. And I'm going to miss him a lot. And he was one of the best people that I've ever known.
I've had my turn, but I'm going to come up here and go again.
Without tears this time, maybe not. Anybody who's close to Betsy or I know that we're very connected. And Betsy and Terry have always been there, and especially when my husband Lee died, they were both always there for me and my kids, always. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk a different part of Terry. I want to talk about a cross that most of you don't know. Terry and Lee were in the diaconate together a good 40-something years ago in this church. And one of them, and I don't know which one, probably Terry, had the idea, wouldn't it be nice if we had a cross up here for Lent? And I don't know if they took it to diaconate. I think they did, and it only met monthly. But in a congregational church, there's meetings, and you debate, would it go in this church? And it would be with the forefathers who like it, what size, what color, whatever. So they knew that Lent there never would be a cross. So they went out in the woods, I think probably Terry, and cut trees, and took the bark off and worked it and shaped it and stained it and made a stand and put it up here in a corner in front and just waited anxiously for a reaction. I mean, just to see, would they like it, would they not like it? Well, they liked it. So much so that it is a perfect symbol for an old New England church. And so, not quite as Rick's thing, but the same kind of thing. When Terry was passionate, he was passionate. And so, when you look at this cross and the obvious symbol for this church, maybe you can also just kind of think about Terry.
You scurvy pirates, any more comments?
Shadows are falling Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you'll think of me and smile. You know I'm tired of the way you lack the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts, take me to your dreams. Touch me as I fall into you. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit. I will be right next to you. Engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Stream. Keep me in your heart for a while. These wheels keep turning like they're running out of steam. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while.
What a great service in the non-traditional fashion, don't you think? When we were sitting around planning the service, Denise said, I envision this incorporating many of the Quaker principles of sitting and waiting until the Spirit moves. And so that's what we've tried to do today. I think Terry would love this. And you know what? It probably doesn't fit the congregational order of worship as we know it now. But like Terry, God damn it, we did it. Let us take a few moments to center ourselves and reflect on what we've heard, what we've seen, and what we've felt today. And let us enter into a place of prayer. Holy One, you are our strength and our Redeemer. You are the giver of life and the conqueror of death. And we praise you with humble hearts. With faith in your great mercy and wisdom, we entrust Terry to your eternal care. And we thank you for your steadfast love for him all the days of his earthly life. We thank you for all that he was to those who loved him and for his faithfulness to your people. We are grateful that for Terry, all sickness and sorrow are ended. And for him, death itself is past, and that he has entered the home where all your people gather in peace. Keep us all in communion with your people in every time and place, that at last we may rejoice together. Let us pray for our own needs. Holy One, support us all the day long of this life full of trouble, until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes, and the busy world is hushed, and the fever of life is over, and our work is done. Then, in your tender mercy, grant us a safe lodging and a holy rest, and peace at the last. We ask these things in your name, and in the spirit of Terry Goodwin. Amen. We are all invited to a time of fellowship and refreshment downstairs. I would caution people, those stairs there are very steep. They're old New England stairs, and they don't meet the code that we should have today, but that's what it is. And I would recommend those who can't take the stairs, just go out the front door and come in the bottom way. Let us go in peace, let us go in good humor, and let us go in good faith, like Terry.